And I'd throw that gun of yours in the river on your way back home. Did you burn the confession? Yes. You bet. Betsy nodded. And I'll erase the message you left on my answering machine. Tess walked away. She looked back once. Betsy Neal was still sitting on the bench. She had put her eye back in. 48. In her expedition, Tess realized it might be an extremely good idea to delete her last few journeys from her GPS. She pushed the power button, and the screen brightened. Tom said, "Hello, Tess. I see we're taking a trip." Tess finished making her deletions, then turned the GPS unit off again. No trip, not really, she was only going home. And she thought she could find the way by herself. Fair extension. Streeter only saw the sign because he had to pull over and puke. He puked a lot now, and there was very little warning, sometimes a flutter of nausea, sometimes a brassy taste in the back of his mouth, and sometimes nothing at all, just and out it came, "Howdy do." It made driving a risky proposition, yet he also drove a lot now, partly because he wouldn't be able to by late fall and partly because he had a lot to think about. He had always done his best thinking behind the wheel. He was out on the Harris Avenue extension, a broad thoroughfare that ran for 2 miles beside the Derry County Airport and the attendant businesses, mostly motels and warehouses. The extension was busy during the daytime, because it connected Derry's west and east sides as well as servicing the airport, but in the evening it was nearly deserted. Streeter pulled over into the bike lane, snatched one of his plastic barf bags from the pile of them on the passenger seat, dropped his face into it, and let fly. Dinner made an encore appearance. Or would have, if he'd had his eyes open. He didn't. Once you'd seen one bellyful of puke, you'd seen them all. When the puking phase started, there hadn't been pain. Dr. Henderson had warned him that would change, and over the last week, it had. Not agony as yet. Just a quick lightning stroke up from the gut and into the throat, like acid indigestion. It came, then faded. But it would get worse. Dr. Henderson had told him that, too. He raised his head from the bag, opened the glove compartment, took out a wire braid tie, and secured his dinner before the smell could permeate the car. He looked to his right and saw a providential litter basket with a cheerful lop-eared hound on the side and a stenciled message reading "Dairy dog says put litter in its place." Streeter got out, went to the dog basket, and disposed of the latest ejecta from his failing body. The summer sun was setting red over the airport's flat, and currently deserted, acreage, and the shadow tacked to his heels was long and grotesquely thin. It was as if it were 4 months ahead of his body, and already fully ravaged by the cancer that would soon be eating him alive. He turned back to his car and saw the sign across the road. At first, probably because his eyes were still watering, he thought it said hair extension. Then he blinked and saw it actually said fair extension. Below that, in smaller letters, fair price. Fair extension, fair price. It sounded good, and almost made sense. There was a gravel area on the far side of the extension, outside the cyclone fence marking the county airport's property. Lots of people set up roadside stands there during the busy hours of the day, because it was possible for customers to pull in without getting tailgated, if you were quick and remembered to use your blinker, that was. Streeter had lived his whole life in the little Maine city of Derry, and over the years he'd seen people selling fresh fiddleheads there in the spring, fresh berries and corn on the cob in the summer, and lobsters almost year-round. In mud season, a crazy old guy known as the Snowman took over the spot, selling scavenged knickknacks that had been lost in the winter and were revealed by the melting snow. Many years ago Streeter had bought a good-looking rag dolly from this man, intending to give it to his daughter May, who had been 2 or 3 back then. He made the mistake of telling Janet that he'd gotten it from the Snowman, and she made him throw it away. "Do you think we can boil a rag doll to kill the germs?" she asked. "Sometimes I wonder how a smart man can be so stupid." Well, cancer didn't discriminate when it came to brains. Smart or stupid, he was about ready to leave the game and take off his uniform. There was a card table set up where the Snowman had once displayed his wares. The pudgy man sitting behind it was shaded from the red rays of the lowering sun by a large yellow umbrella that was cocked at a rakish angle. Streeter stood in front of his car for a minute, almost got in. The pudgy man had taken no notice of him. He appeared to be watching a small portable TV, and then curiosity got the better of him. He checked for traffic, saw none. The extension was predictably dead at this hour, all the commuters at home eating dinner and taking their non-cancerous states for granted, and crossed the 4 empty lanes. His scrawny shadow, the ghost of Streeter yet to come, trailed out behind him. The pudgy man looked up. "Hello there," he said. Before he turned the TV off, Streeter had time to see the guy was watching Inside Edition. "How are we tonight?" "Well, I don't know about you, but I've been better," Streeter said. "Kind of late to be selling, isn't it?"